We're at MIC's New Art Gallery on Auckland's K Road talking with Matt Kenyon. Matt is an assistant professor of new media at Pennsylvania State University, but he is here in Auckland as a resident at AUT's CoLab Creative Technology Centre. Matt, you're one half of digital media collective SWAMP. Can you explain a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, SWAMP stands for Studies of Work Atmospheres in Mass Production, and I am in SWAMP with my collaborator, Doug Easterly. This exhibition is titled Fire Sale. This is the first exhibition we've had in New Zealand, and there are 8 works in the show. The Puddle Project, at first glance, appears to be a normal puddle of oil on a plinth, but as you approach it, slowly names start to spell out and start to appear in the puddle of the oil. These names deal with they're kind of an interesting grouping of names in that they deal with ideas of Western expansion and sort of native peoples and pristine territories, by inscribing the sort of names that have a real variety of kind of cultural, textural readings into the fluid of our global energy infrastructure. Hopefully people will arrive at some relationship between themselves, their patterns of consumption, and the way that marketing tugs on their heartstrings. I.E.D. Armband is a wearable computing artwork that monitors the U.S. servicemen and women's casualties overseas. So whenever the Department of Defense or CENTCOM releases the day's casualty statistics, they're instantly received on this armband. The name, rank, cause of death, and hometown of the service person is displayed on a small LCD screen. And then the wearer of the armband is stabbed with a tiny little needle. It's about the equivalent of being stung by a bee or a wasp. It came about, I was driving to go visit Doug, my collaborator, Doug Easterly, and I was in my car and I heard the day's casualty report. And intellectually, I was really upset by it, but I felt very guilty because I didn't feel that it really affected me the way that it should. That the delivery vehicle of this information coming through the radio didn't incite a whole lot of empathy within me. It was the way it was sort of sterilely simplified down and sort of broadcast over the radio. I was thinking that same sort of technology could be used to put us in direct and immediate connect with the pain of others. Of course, it's just a fraction of the pain that somebody would feel if they lost a loved one. But cumulatively, over time, maybe it can actually create some kind of consciousness. Notepad's a companion piece to the I.E.D. Armband, where the I.E.D. Armband deals exclusively with U.S. men and women, servicemen and women who've died overseas. Notepad deals with the civilian deaths as a result of the U.S. invasion in Iraq. And so what we did is we took that 10,000 civilian casualty data set and printed it as microprint text. So all of the lines on the paper are actually tiny type that's visible only through a slide loop or a magnifying glass. And then we compiled these names into tablets of paper, yellow legal tablets, and then we set about smuggling these into the stationary supply of Capitol Hill. The hope is, of course, that either a citizen or an aide to a senator will write on this paper, and then at the end of the day, at the end of the administration, the paper gets gathered up and becomes part of our history. This robot is called C3, and it's named after a low-carb Coke drink, C1. And he's programmed to do one thing, and that's to drink Coke to the point of self-destruction. So C3 has a bit of a camera for an eye, has a mouth on its belly, and a pH sensor, and it moves around the gallery looking for puddles of Coke that we pour on the floor. Okay. And when it finds a puddle of Coke, it lowers its body down and sucks the Coke up, and then spits it over this umbrella in a real celebratory manner. And the Coke eventually eats through the umbrella, which is made of this material called Dissolvo. It's a fantastic name for a material that's used in industrial pipe welding. And eventually the umbrella deteriorates, and then Coke drips on the open circuits and self-destructs. I became part of the Nielsen home scan unit, and what they did is, and it's pretty bizarre, they mail you a barcode scanner, and what they want you to do is rescan everything that you buy in the store, and then every week you radio it up to the Nielsen mothership somewhere, and they're able to calculate market penetration and how much ad sales should cost and things like that. And so instead of using it in its traditional way, its intended way, I took apart this device and built it into a custom piece of orthodonture, along with a tiny little video camera, and had a hole put in my cheek, and ran all these sort of wires out from the device out of my cheek to this wearable computer. And then I go through all of consumer culture, scanning and indexing one of everything. And then all of this footage goes into a big archive that we have. And then I have a tiny video projector that actually I install into my mouth, and then I project the footage out of my mouth in a series of performances in the gallery. One of the reasons we work in the materials that we do and try to sort of appropriate the language of pop culture is because it's the massive power structure that exists, and it makes things that are wonderful and full of spectacle. And we're envious of that, but it's the outcomes and the false promises that need to be critical. We need to be critical of, I think.